son. You rich!
Welcome back, everyone. It's Charlie. This will be my full Rick and Morty Season 8, Episode 3 video. It was sort of a spiritual successor, like a spiritual sequel to the Ricklantis Mixup, the original Citadel of Rick's episode in Season 3. There are a whole bunch of Easter eggs and references, so we'll break it all down. If you're brand new to the channel, be sure to subscribe to get all the episodes. The episode title was The Rick, the Mort, and the Ugly, a reference to the classic Clint Eastwood spaghetti western, The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly. Also, this episode was kind of a western. You could say the Rick in this equation is the farmer Rick who used to run the cloning operation on the Citadel of Ricks. The Mort is all the clone Mortys, and the Ugly is Big Rick, the main villain of the episode. It basically winds up being a Citadel of Ricks episode crossed with John Wick, and a western, with one of the alternate Ricks being the John Wick, this farmer Rick. You could also think of this as the episode where the writers and Dan Harmon really go after Tori Amos. I don't know what she did to make them hate her so much. Dan Harmon said he called this episode a spiritual sequel to the Ricklantis Mixup because the episode narrative moves like the Ricklantis Mixup, where it starts with the original C137 Rick and his Morty. You think they're going to have a regular adventure, but then it pivots the story to a completely different group of Citadel characters that we see during the rest of the episode. There is no cold open. They start with a brand new intro. I've already done a complete breakdown of all the brand new intro scenes. None of them appear in this episode, so we'll see if any of them appear in future episodes this season. But one of the big jokes of intro scenes is that they're just scenes that haven't happened yet. So at any point in any future season, any of the previous ones that we haven't seen in episodes yet could appear in some episode randomly. They pick up with C137 Rick on what seems like a regular mission cleaning up the debris left over from the destruction of the Citadel of Ricks way back at the end of Season 5. There have been a couple times where they'd referenced or they'd shown the destroyed version of the Citadel in future episodes after that Season 5 finale, but for the most part, they just make it seem like Rick has come back here in between other missions to slowly clean up the rest of the debris. Got a little bulldozer attachment and a spaceship just pushing around the trash. We also see Dead Andy, the Citadel's mascot that we saw during Season 5, Episode 10, because Rick's and Morty's. That was why he was called Andy, the mascot.
I'm Citadel's new mascot, Andy, because this place wouldn't be home without Rick's Andy Morty.
There's a whole bit that they actually pay off at the end of the episode with Morty's fidget spinners, thinking that they're super cool again. Rick could care less about them, and when he says they were created by ancient Egyptians, that might be a reference to them being created by ancient Mesopotamians. There wasn't an actual ancient fidget spinner, but museums found something that looked kind of like a fidget spinner, so people were calling it an ancient fidget spinner. His ship gets damaged by the debris, forcing them to land on a nearby asteroid, finding refugees from the Citadel of Ricks who had tried to recreate the Citadel in a more primitive form, with a bunch of Mortys creating their own town, just trying to live independently from the other Ricks nearby. Rick explains that even though all the different Ricks that were not clones got sent back to their original universes because of the way the Citadel was engineered originally, using their DNA, it was kind of like a Spider-Man No Way Home spell situation where, like, Doctor Strange's spell automatically sent a bunch of people back to their original universes. But these Mortys and the Ricks that we also see later, with the exception of the one, the cloning Rick who was head of cloning on the Citadel, are all meant to be clones, and that's why they didn't get sent back. So all the clones are just trying to live in the ashes of the Citadel, with the Ricks trying to recreate the Citadel with Big Rick, and the Mortys just trying to live out their lives in this peaceful existence, making a town for themselves that they control, free from Rick's control. When he says they don't want to stop here, this is a Morty part of town, that's a callback to the Citadel of Ricks episode in Season 3, where they did part of the episode in their own parody of the Cops TV show, showing how all the Mortys lived in the bad part of town. They land in a nearby Rick's cornfield who's growing stalks of crystals. It winds up being the former head of cloning that we learn later. He basically shoos them away with his gun, and that winds up being the end of their presence in the episode till the very end, where they wind up doing the twist with the Ricklantis mix-up where it pivots to all the Citadel characters. We follow him through his daily life. He feeds his mutant pigs. They explain because he's head of cloning, that's why he has all these mutants here, because he created them. This one seems like it's part human. This pig with the little pig inside its mouth seems like an Aliens reference. There's even an Aliens TV show called Alien Earth that they're actually going to be doing later this year. Then we get a Citadel of Rick style montage showing what his daily life is like. It's just like the Citadel of Rick's montage at the beginning of that episode, where you see them going about their lives like it's just another day on the Citadel. He sells a batch of his distilled crystals to Arcade Morty, who runs this arcade shop. It's an arcade because Morty's. Of course, they'd be playing in an arcade. Then they reveal there's a roving band of Ricks who prey on their town, capturing all of them. They just call them Trafficker Ricks. They wind up shooting him as they leave. This is where you start to pick up with the John Wick plot of the episode. And they reveal Boss Rick, the main villain of the episode, is trying to rebuild the Citadel. And the reason why they're capturing these Mortys is so they can unlock the cloning device. That's why they're looking for specific DNA code so that they can make clone as many Mortys as they want. Also, these clone versions of Ricks can all live like kings in the ashes of the Citadel here. Like they can all have as many Mortys as they want to serve them. So if it wasn't clear, that's what they're trying to do with all the Mortys that they captured. Like they're trying to find the right DNA sequence that only the head of cloning Rick, the farmer Rick, knows. Also that they can create infinite Mortys. Odd Job is a reference to Odd Job from James Bond's Goldfinger, weirdly chatty.
You like football? What? Just making small talk.
There are a couple versions of the characters that are very specific references, but a lot of them just wind up being generic ones. There's a whole bunch of cross-dressing Ricks acting like saloon girls and performers. Ricks are all narcissists, like even the clone Ricks, so of course they wouldn't mind getting it on with themselves, like they wouldn't care about that. Their leader, Big Rick, seems like an amalgam of a bunch of different Southern gentleman characters from movies and TV shows. Like he seems like a combination of Big Daddy from Django Unchained, maybe some Boss Hogg, Dukes of Hazzard references there, but also a little bit of Muppet movie references to Doc Hopper when they start talking about all the gumbo. He makes a bunch of Citadel gumbo chain references. That seems like more of a Muppet movie reference to Doc Hopper, who wanted Kermit the Frog to work as the spokesman for his frog leg restaurants before he tried to kill him. When he calls out the trope of monologuing while they wait, that's because all Ricks call out tropes from movies and TV shows. It's not just the main C137 Rick who does that. He explains his grand plan to create all these different Morty clones to serve them so the Ricks can live like kings. His payment to the trafficker Rick for all those captured Mortys is portal fluid. Farmer Rick gets rescued by his robots, then finds his destroyed home in the charred ashes of his mutant pigs. This sort of feels like a combination reference to Star Wars A New Hope, with him finding Aunt Beru and Owen burned by the stormtroopers, like the whole farm destroyed by the stormtroopers, but also the John Wick part of the episode where they kill his dog, with them treating the mutant pigs like the dog in John Wick. Then I guess for some reason the writers of the episode or Dan Harmon just absolutely cannot stand Tori Amos because they go for the jugular. Like they make so many jokes about her being terrible and making fun of her music. Pulling his weapons out of a secret compartment here on the floor feels like him just going full John Wick. Tracks the Ricks down to their Citadel base using the fragments of their bottle, the Arcade Morty owner and the Doc Morty sneaking along to try and rescue the Mortys from town that were captured, with him also explaining that he wasn't going to rescue the Mortys, he was going to kill all the Ricks. They use this to start him on the arc of redeeming himself, like eventually he does try to help the Mortys. Sort of like him atoning for all the stuff that he did when the Citadel was actually functioning and he was cloning all these different Mortys. Because one of the other big reveals, too, is that he cloned all the Mortys that he's helping rescue during the episode. He's also responsible for cloning all the Ricks, who are all the villains of the episode, too. Like, the entire plot of the episode is actually because of what he did. Like, he's responsible for everything that happens in the episode because he created everybody, the Ricks and the Mortys. Technically, everything bad that happens in the episode is this Farmer Rick's fault. When they say that their Morty memories of their Ricks were fabricated when they were cloned, that was actually a thing they revealed in previous episodes. So like Farmer Rick, when he was cloning all of them back in the day when the Citadel was functioning, would implant all the different Mortys and Ricks with memories so that they didn't know that they were clones.
Liar! It's complicated.
The whole bit about Ricks not having original ideas feels like Dan Harmon and the writers making fun of themselves for redoing episode ideas. Like, we're redoing another Citadel of Ricks episode, reusing the same type of plot. All the different trafficker Ricks say they plan to use their portal fluid to escape to better realities. When they make the joke about the teabagging of the mom for this Rick that he doesn't have, we actually did see the parents of C137 Rick. So like the Ricks that were born, technically the ones that weren't clones, did actually have mothers and fathers, but we've only seen cameos from them in the past. Maybe at some point they'll get more into Rick's backstory when he was a child. Farmer Rick starts mowing all of them down John Wick style while they play dice with what look like living dice, like the actual dice are alive, and start fighting each other in this mortal battle like they're destined to ultimately fight each other, which they use the post-credit scene for too. All this animation on this big fight scene, the fight scenes later in the episode, all look fantastic. Like, it seems like they spent a lot of the budget this season on this big fight stuff. Doc Morty dies. They use it for a big doctor reference and a couple of jokes about his painful death. Like, am I going to bleed out or am I going to burn alive? Which one is more painful? Oh, I want the less painful death. Back at the Citadel, they explained that all the Ricks are terrible to everyone, even themselves, with them body shaming this Rick because he gets made fun of for having hooves for hands. And they make the big reveal that this Farmer Rick, John Wick style, actually used to be the Citadel's former head of replication, cloning all the Mortys and all the Ricks. So like I said, everybody who's living here, like all the Ricks that are trying to rebuild the Citadel, all the Mortys that were creating their own town, were all cloned by the single Farmer Rick. I think this is also meant to be the John Wick reference to his mysterious past. Like in the John Wick movies, he used to be this really badass assassin and was trying to live a normal life, atone for some of the crazy stuff that he'd done. And in this episode, that's kind of what Farmer Rick is trying to do too, like live a peaceful life and atone for what he did previously. Then I think when Big Rick says, "get your mouth around it," that's meant to be an Arby's reference because the other Rick says, "I love the curly fries there." Farmer Rick tricks them into allowing him to create a giant hulked out mutant Morty to kill all of them. Morty smash, and even though he says that he's not a good person to the Mortys, to his credit, Farmer Rick does try to help rescue all these Mortys. He stays behind to sacrifice himself, allowing them to all escape. They play Tori Amos over a montage of him going full John Wick with mutant Hulk Morty, destroying the other Rick, just fighting their way through the rest of the Citadel. They pay off the bit with Trafficker Rick talking about his long-term plan, and it seems like he always planned on stealing the rest of the portal fluid from Big Rick here, who does wind up getting the drop on him, but also revealing that the whole Southern gentleman accent was totally fake.
Whatever you say, man. That's your real voice?
Then after he has the standoff with Farmer Rick, they pay off the line from earlier when he tells Big Rick to get his mouth around it as the Citadel is fully destroyed this time, like perma-destroyed. They also have a bit about Big Rick thinking of Farmer Rick as his father because technically he cloned him as head of cloning, but then he kind of sticks it to him by implying that he never really cared about him and he just delegated the duties of actually cloning all these different Ricks and Mortys to lesser employees. Like, potentially a Morty was in charge of cloning Big Rick, setting off the rest of his bombs, destroying the remnants of the Citadel. And they're very careful to linger on the shot to show you that everything is gone. Like, there are no Citadel pieces that are still around for them to recreate. So I think the idea is that we're not going to do any more Citadel episodes, maybe a couple references in the background to like other clones, but not any more episodes like this, like a real Citadel episode. We see the surviving Morty clones head to other planets based on their specific interests, with Arcade Morty going back to Farmer Rick's home to live there, bearing him the 19XX to 20XX date. Feels like a joke that Dan Harmon, the writers, are doing in the episode, not wanting to be super specific about dates, so the episode feels more evergreen in 10 to 20 years when someone tries to watch the episode again, just so they don't nail themselves into a corner with dates. This is actually something that animated episodes, regular TV episodes too, like live action stuff, tries to do all the time. Then he buries Doc Morty right next to him, just as C137 Rick and his main Morty come back to the episode looking for his lost fidget spinner from earlier to pay off the earlier jokes. Also, this is the same way the Ricklantis Mixup original Citadel episode went, with the main Rick and Morty coming back into the story at the very end of the episode. Their whole joke at the end here is just that C137 Rick and Morty are both terrible people because they're just so self-absorbed in their own adventures. They don't care about any of the Ricks or the Mortys that died during this big adventure that happened here. Like, they don't care about anything that happened. It's kind of like a Seinfeld vibe, like a Seinfeld ending where they all wind up being terrible people. Then during the post-credit scene, they show the living dice surviving the wreckage only to start their fight again from earlier, like they're locked in eternal combat and they can't do anything else, like they only live to kill each other and nothing else. Just feels like general commentary on the dystopian state of the world in real life right now, just like a really solid way to go out. But because there's so much stuff that was packed into the episode, if there are any other Easter eggs and references that you spotted or callbacks to the original Citadel of Rick's episode that I didn't talk about in the video, just write them below in the comments. My full episode 4 video will post next week after they release it. There's going to be a bunch of other stuff happening this week too. Superman tickets are supposed to go on sale, so I'll probably do a giveaway for those in those relevant Superman videos. Everybody click here for my brand new Deadpool video. Ryan Reynolds just doing a big blast from the past, and click here for all my Rick and Morty episodes. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next one.